Well, hello. I want to start this episode with a question. If I asked you, who do you think has the deepest impact on your ability to love yourself from the earliest age of your life, who would you say? If you said your mother or your primary caregiver, you are correct. In this episode, we're going to be covering what happens when you have a mean or unloving mother. How does that impact your ability to love yourself and to have meaningful, long-lasting relationships with other people? My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, founder of Boundary Bootcamp, and the upcoming Real Love Revolution Challenge. So let's get to it. First of all, people, especially women who have unloving or mean mothers, rejecting mothers, it's an incredibly isolating experience because nobody wants to talk about it. If you bring this up with people who don't have an unloving mother, they say the dumbest things. They say the most judgmental things. You only have one mother. You should, love her. She loves you. No idea, having no clue as to what your situation may be and how painful it is. So a lot of the times what I found in my psychotherapy practice is that women just won't talk about it. Or they'll just go along and say, yeah, it's great, it's fine, but never actually reveal the truth about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is the impact it has on you if you have a mean or an unloving mother, and then what are steps that you can take. I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet with some steps that you can take to get on this path of healing. And hey, maybe you're already on the path and that's great. So my steps will just be other ideas for you to consider. So let's talk about what this produces in you if you have an unloving mother. So isolation is one thing, right? Because nobody wants to talk about it. What else? The disease to please. So here's the thing. If you're constantly looking for your mother's attention or approval, you can also start doing that in life. It's difficult to draw boundaries when you come from this situation because you are always looking for approval or wanting approval. So the disease to please, I've done other videos on that, so you can, episodes on that as well. You can go check that out to see if you have that, which is basically the 4 points of having the disease to please is that you prioritize everyone else's needs above your own. You say yes when you really want to say no. You avoid a confrontation at all costs, and you apologize often, not only when you're not sorry, but when you're angry. So if you said yes to any of those things, I encourage you to go check out the episode on the disease to please, because I have some ideas in that episode on how to actually get rid of it. So what else happens when you are raised by an unloving mother, and what does it look like? So if you think about the way that we interact with little babies, we're constantly mirroring, right? When you look at a child in the eyes, you're mirroring. They make a particular face naturally. Women, in particular, mothers, we mirror back, but we're smiling and we're looking at them with love, affection, holding them in high esteem, and they haven't even done anything, right? All you have to do is be born to be held in high esteem if you are a loving mother. But what happens when what is reflected back to you is negative, or if you have this primary caregiver who has real disdain for you as a child? I mean, there certainly are consequences. So another thing that can come from this is having lack of confidence. Because if the person who was supposed to be the one who thinks you're the best, the primary person, the person who's impacting you the most in your life, is rejecting, cruel, mean, that doesn't give you good self-esteem. I've had so many clients, women in particular, who've had these rejecting mothers or these mean mothers, and they'll say, if your own mother doesn't like you, if you have that feeling, I always thought in my life, why would anybody like me? One of my clients was saying to me, if my own mother, I thought mothers had to like you. So it really does do a number on your confidence and your self-esteem. Another thing that happens is that you create what I call a repeating reality. So what does this mean? This means that you can find yourself in similar situations. You may be drawing women into your life who are very rejecting, who are very judgmental. You may have friendships that don't feel great, where you're constantly, again, chasing or seeking this person's approval or advice or their attention, their affection. You want them to think highly of you. But here's the tendency. When we have these injuries, these unresolved childhood injuries, what happens? We haven't shifted enough inside to create the new outcome that we're seeking. So in a repeating reality, we're drawn to people who are familiar to us in some way, unconsciously wanting a better outcome, right? So you want that friend who's like your mother to give you the attention and the affection that you're seeking, but without some realization within yourself about what you're doing, until that process comes into your conscious mind, so much of the time you end up just repeating the unsatisfying relationship. So to identify if you have gotten yourself into what I call a repeating reality, you ask the 3 Qs. Who does this person remind me of? Where have I felt like this before? And why is this dynamic familiar to me? And you can start to identify what relationships you have in your life because you are repeating this reality. Without having a new skill set, you won't be able to change the outcome. But awareness, don't worry, this is the beginning of all transformation, and you are becoming aware right now, and you probably already were aware before you saw this. What I'm hoping to give you in this video is the sense that you're not alone, and that there's actually nothing wrong with you. This is a limitation that your mother has, and it's so sad. And it's a terrible thing to experience. But you're not damaged. Nothing is wrong with you. So let's talk about how can you move into healing? Because the next thing I want to say before the healing is that the last area I'm going to talk about is relationships. So how do you think having a mean or rejecting mother impacts your connectedness in romantic relationships? So if we look at attachment theory, right, this is how the early relationships in our life, the primary caregivers, how that relationship impacts how we relate later in life in romantic relationships. So there's 2 main results from having this type of early primary caregiver, and that is having an ambivalent attachment, right? Because what did you learn? You learned that it isn't safe. You don't know which mother you would get. A daughter of a rejecting or unloving mother, a son as well, doesn't know if it's going to be the good mother or the bad mother. So it makes intimacy and connectedness not a safe place to be in. And the other attachment that comes from this type of early childhood experience is an avoidant attachment. Meaning it's all so stressful that you just pull yourself out of the running in relationships. It's like you would rather end it than be rejected. So those are 2 things that I've actually also done a lot of videos on attachment styles and how they impact your ability to be in relationships. So you can also look for those either on the podcast or on YouTube. In the meantime, let's move into some healing, shall we? So what are the steps that you can take? The first thing is that you have to understand that it isn't true that what your mother sold you, those bill of goods, that something is monumentally wrong with you, isn't true. Her criticism of you. When you're a child, you don't have any other information. You're like, okay, I guess that I'm fat and ugly, or that I'm stupid, or that it's all my fault. And it isn't all your fault. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is get a snapshot of you as a child. And I want you to really put that either on your phone as your screensaver, on your computer somewhere, and I want you to honestly look at that little face and know who that isn't true. Whatever bill of goods your rejecting or unloving mother tried to tell you, this is where the healing comes in, is that look at that child who is you. And you know that kid is and was adorable. There was nothing wrong with her. And she definitely did not deserve that shit. So the picture is for you to look and love your little self, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is do what I call a snapshot of your relationships. Look at your friendships or romantic relationships. Do a snapshot of them. And I want you to see in which one of these are you repeating this relationship with your mother. So you can isolate them and just ask yourself a question. Which relationships in my life make me feel good about myself? What friends truly support me in an unconditional way, really know you and love you for who you are? And which friends are constantly judging you and being critical and telling you you did the wrong thing and you made the wrong choice, giving you unasked for advice and criticism? Because we need to get a list of those people, and I want you to start energetically shifting those relationships. Because you don't need a bunch of people making you feel bad about yourself in your life. You really don't. And so much of the time we're doing this and it's completely unconscious. So get your list together just so that you have an awareness of who it is that you have in your life, right? Who is it that you're allowing into your life? Because you're the one who has to decide. And the last thing I want to talk about is chosen family, that you can choose. There are things that we call corrective emotional experiences, where you can choose a mentor, a female mentor who regards you and holds you in high esteem. Find someone to mentor you. Or I a lot of times you'll have someone like, I had a friend who had this with her mother, and she had a lot of older women who were friends in her life. And from an early age, from the age of 18, she had women who were in their 30s who were her friends. And I always thought it was interesting and odd. And not until I became a psychotherapist did I understand that she was naturally finding women who would remother her in an appropriate and healthy way. And it really healed this mother wound for my friend. It really did. Part of it for her is that when she did get into therapy, there was the realization that her mother wasn't going to change and that she could stop barking up that tree where there was not going to be a shift. She could stop bashing her head against that brick wall when she had the power to develop healthy relationships with women who would mother her. The same way that healthy romantic relationships, we mother and father each other equally at different turns, right? Depending on where we are, what's going on in our lives. You can find a mentor who can help you heal this mother wound as well. But you must be aware of the people you're allowing into your life, because if you're not conscious of it, you will naturally and unconsciously, it's called repetition compulsion, repeat this traumatic relationship. So if you repeat it consciously, you can change the outcome. If you repeat it unconsciously, you will most likely have the same unsatisfying outcome. So, I know that was a little bit heavy. Don't worry, we have that little step cheat sheet for you. All you have to do is download it. If you liked this episode, please share it on any of your social media platforms, because really we heal the world by healing ourselves, one situation at a time. So I hope that you have an amazing week, and as always, take care of you.